Welcome to Prime Group Kaleidoscope with me, Savithri Rodrigo, and happy Diwali to everyone celebrating this festival of lights, where it is widely believed that the goddess of prosperity, Lakshmi, roams the earth and blesses people with wealth and happiness. So you can access Kaleidoscope with Savithri Rodrigo on 4 digital sites: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. On our show today is the CEO of Sri Lanka's newest airline operator, our tax expert on budget expectations, cheery crafted gifts and the country's first museum of religious freedom.
Welcome to 88 Residence Kathadua. Invest just 3 million and own your dream home. Pay 25% in 2.5 years, 55% at the handover with zero interest. Prices starting from 14.5 million. 0710 888 444. 88 Residence, Prime Group.
A quick look at the week that was on Snapshot. Sri Lanka's core inflation jumped from 5.7% in September to an year-on-year 4-year high of 7.6% in October. Topping $11 billion up to September, Sri Lanka's exports are poised to achieve the $16 billion target by end 2021. The Bandaranaike International Airport has begun planning its first airport hotel, a 4-star, 100-roomed investment of $18 million. Selinco Life will reward more than 1,000 policyholders with a total of 30 million rupees worth of gold and gifts via the 15th Family Safari. At COP26 held in Glasgow this week, more than 100 countries agreed on a 30% cut of methane emissions by 2030. Big John is the world's biggest triceratops ever found. He is 66 million years old and was recently auctioned for $7.7 million. This is Prime Group Kaleidoscope and here's our news capsule. Sri Lanka's Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa presents his maiden budget, Budget 2022, in Parliament on November the 12th. Given that tax proposals play a key role in any government's annual budget proposal, I asked Head of Tax of KPMG Sri Lanka, Suresh R.I. Pereira, whether it would be the case this year too.
Because we all know, sometimes back, the government made a statement that the tax rules will not change for a period of 5 years. That is to create the certainty in the tax system. But then we all know that at present the government is struggling. The tax system is not generating enough taxes to meet the government's expenditure. So in that context, will the government be compelled to change that stance and increase the tax collection? For that purpose, will the government introduce new taxes, increase the rate, broad-base the tax system, eliminate the exemptions and take measures of that nature? And also, we recall that the last budget speech, government proposed to introduce a new special goods and services tax. But however, that was not implemented during the year. It's interesting to see whether there will be a reference to that in this budget speech also.
News from the Colombo stock market in a shortened week due to the Deepavali holiday. The all-share price index moved up by 2.3%, while the daily turnover averaged a reasonably healthy 4.7 billion rupees. Oil prices stabilized this week as a big build in crude oil and distillate stocks in the US kept WTI prices around the $82 mark, with pressure mounting on OPEC to increase supply. Gold remained flat this week at $1,782 per ounce. Sri Lanka will soon have its third international airline operator gracing her skies, Fly Lankanasia. However, if we were to take a look at the national carrier Sri Lankan incurring heavy losses, I asked Fly Lankanasia CEO Dr. Arosha Fernando what his business model will be and how he intends to be profitable.
We are looking at operating initially as a regional operator, only limiting our services to India, Dubai, Maldives, Indonesia, Malaysia, as well as Myanmar. So with this, again, we are more focusing on the cargo sector than the passenger. However, it's a combination, passengers and cargo both. With the experience of the investors 30 years in this industry, he has actually done 5 startups in 7 different countries. So he has enough and more experience to have a startup. So as I said, we are looking at complementing instead of competing with the national carrier as well as with the Fitz-Air.
In a rare blooming event in Southern California, the corpse flower, so called because it smells like a rotting corpse and blooms very rarely, blossomed. But the bloom lasted only 48 hours. It was time for the witches to chant, the vampires to fly, and the black cats to roam. Star-studded bashes held in Hollywood revealed some impressive costumes at Halloween parties held around town.
Welcome to 88 Residence Kathadua. Invest just 3 million and own your dream home. Pay 25% in 2.5 years, 55% at the handover with zero interest. Prices starting from 14.5 million. 0710 888 444. 88 Residence, Prime Group.
Next up, news of Sri Lanka's first Museum of Religious Freedom on Srilanka Live. Let's talk.
World of risks and obstacles, we are there to help you reach your goals. With 12 billion rupees worth of customer benefits in 2020 and a life insurance fund worth over 100 billion rupees. Our strength is your strength. You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Leaders from as far back as 550 BC were intent on initiating and permitting religious freedom. This was one of those fundamentals which allowed people to be understanding of each other and dig deep into their personal religious roots for conflict resolution. Sri Lanka will have its first Museum of Religious Freedom, a virtual space brought to life by Minor Matters, dedicated to archiving, learning and critically reflecting the complex histories and contemporary concerns related to the freedom of religion or belief. I turn to B.Ed scholar who's reading for her doctorate in history at Oxford University, Shamara Vettimuni, who is the lead researcher on the project. Welcome Shamara, and thank you very much for joining us on Srilanka Live. Let's talk. People may argue that we have religious freedom in Sri Lanka, albeit with some warts. Having focused on modern religious identity formation and religious conflict during British rule, what do you think?
Historically speaking, and focusing on the British colonial period, there was a degree of religious freedom, particularly when compared with the Dutch and Portuguese rule that preceded it. Buddhists were guaranteed certain freedoms and even protections under the 1815 Kandyan Convention, while Hindus and Muslims were also able to practice their religion, albeit without any official state support. But it was in this context of a more religiously permissible atmosphere that we actually witnessed the rise of religious violence. And that's why in this virtual museum project that I'm working on, we're hoping to create a better understanding of the various factors driving religious freedom and the circumstances in which those freedoms can be restricted.
And what is the end objective of this museum?
It really hopes to make an impact among the youth in Sri Lanka. The way it has designed, gamified almost, like you're playing a video game, and the availability of content in all 3 languages is part of the approach to appeal to youth from across ethnic, religious and linguistic lines. And I suppose the aim is to provide accessible historical education through an alternative approach. So, for example, the public school history syllabus that children are taught does not adequately address major issues from the 20th or 21st century. While what happened 2000 years ago is important, what's happened in the last 200 years is, in my opinion, equally, if not more important. But by shielding the youth from real and troubling issues, the state is not doing enough to ensure that we don't repeat those same mistakes. And instead, we should be encouraging the youth to sort of see the direction we're taking by leaning back on historical experience. And so this virtual museum is an attempt to bridge that gap, really, in public education.
So there have been a series of dialogues on this. What were some of your key findings via these dialogues?
The first is that actually there's huge interest in historical learning and education, and that's a really gratifying thing to see. So while the content of history teaching matters, perhaps the medium in which it's taught also makes a significant difference. And the second insight I think we've gathered is that these historical events and issues are extremely divisive, and they're very real today. And some of that divisiveness comes from misunderstandings or being exposed to only one side of the narrative. And that's not the fault of the viewer. And that's what we're hoping to offer by providing multiple narratives, truths for different individuals or communities. We're trying to suggest that just because one experience is real, it doesn't make others' experiences any less real or difficult. Because our history of religious freedom is complex, and we can only address the past as well as the present by having respectful, open dialogues and accepting others' viewpoints without having to disregard your own.
If we were to look at similar museums in other countries, how have these museums helped build and sustain religious freedom?
I think there are two museum pieces that have really had an impact on me. So this is my personal response. The first is a more traditional memorial museum, which is in Berlin and called the Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe. And the other is less a museum, but a site of horrific atrocity that has been preserved as a stark message to its visitors. And that's the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland, its extension Auschwitz-Birkenau, which was an extermination camp. But today they are a reminder to us of the utter depravity of human nature and how man can mechanize genocide and dehumanize people based on their perceived ethnic or religious differences. So I feel that these structures memorialize, these museum spaces memorialize experience in a far more effective way than words on paper ever can. And I hope that they'll help younger generations navigate problems encountered to prevent the repetition of horrors that took place in the past.
So thank you very much, Shamara, for sharing your experiences in putting the research for this museum together and how it all came about and what your gleanings or what your findings have been. That was Shamara Vettimuni, the lead researcher of the Museum for Religious Freedom here in Sri Lanka. Are you always looking for just the right gift for just the right person? I am and have been saved by Cut and Craft, the studio, an entrepreneur with a passion to add cheer, color, love and design into her gifts. Ruqayya Hassan is a mum of 3 and loves the vibrant side of life. Here's her story on Life in 60, how she embarked on this quest of gift giving.
Turning trash into treasure has been my way of creating little gifts for my loved ones since I was young. My childhood love would have had every broken item in my house that was turned into a piece that expressed love. Having this as my nature, it's amazing how it's now a part of my profession, a hobby turned profession which is now an open lane to many out there who want to express love, joy and celebration through customized gifts. We offer products ranging from individually curated items to combinations, baby products, printing solutions and much more for occasions that celebrate different people and seasons as well as the corporates. We have it all. There's so much of inspiration and expressions of people out there in the world. Being able to listen to our customers' stories and provide them with carefully curated products using custom designed high quality material, blending modern colors, a purpose, and that personal touch for that perfect finesse is my way of naming it my unique selling point.
We'll be back next week. Enjoy your week. Stay safe. The future depends on what you do today. Mahatma Gandhi.